In my previous life, just after I graduated from college, my boyfriend, Ryan Miller, suggested a trip to the mountains for some extreme whitewater rafting. I tried to dissuade him, pointing out that the rapids there were steep and dangerous, making accidents likely. Ryan listened to my concerns, and we didn't go. However, other classmates who went ended up capsizing their rafts. Some drowned, while others suffered lung infections or brain damage. A few years later, Ryan and I got married and had a child. I thought life was perfect until the day I was too weak to get out of bed after giving birth. Ryan dragged me to the bathroom and forced my head into the toilet bowl, suffocating me. His last words to me were filled with hatred. "If it weren't for you stopping me back then, she wouldn't have died." It was then I realized Ryan had blamed me all along for the death of his childhood sweetheart, Lily Parker, who drowned during that rafting trip. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Ryan asked me about the rafting trip. "Babe, my friends and I are planning a trip to the mountains in a couple of days to try out that extreme whitewater rafting. They say it's the most thrilling one in the country. Will you come with me? Please?" Ryan's face loomed large in front of me. A wave of suffocating fear surged through me, and I gasped for air, needing a moment to calm down. On the table lay the brochure for the rafting trip. It boldly advertised, 300-meter drop, not for the faint-hearted or those with heart conditions. "Anna, this is the perfect birthday gift we found for Ryan. It's guaranteed to be thrilling and fun. Besides, Ryan loves adventure. You wouldn't let his birthday be disappointing, would you?" Lily said, batting her eyes as if trying to brainwash me. She even threw a flirtatious glance at Ryan, who returned it, their gazes full of unspoken intimacy. In my previous life, I had naively believed their relationship was purely platonic childhood friendship. But now, I clenched my hands tightly, forcing myself to remain calm. Back then, both of them had eagerly pushed me to join the rafting trip. I refused, citing the risks, the steep drop, the likelihood of capsizing, and the poor management of the new attraction. I warned them that, in the mountains, rescue might not arrive in time if something went wrong. Lily's face darkened immediately. "What are you trying to say? Anna, if you don't want to go, fine. But we put so much thought into planning this for Ryan, and now you're just dismissing it." Even Ryan seemed displeased. "Anna, Lily is my best friend. She'd never put me in harm's way." I ignored Ryan's instinctive defense of Lily and apologized to her. Then I dragged Ryan out of the restaurant, leaving Lily behind, muttering, "Coward, if you won't go, I'll go myself." Back in our apartment, I compiled news reports about rafting accidents and sent them to Ryan. Though reluctant, he eventually decided against going after reading about fatalities caused by rafting. As predicted, disaster struck on the day Lily and her group went rafting. Their raft capsized, and rescue workers, distracted by smoking in the woods, didn't arrive in time. Lily, who couldn't swim, drowned, while the others suffered varying injuries. Ryan had hugged me tightly afterward, his face filled with relief. "Thank you, Anna. If it weren't for you, I might have died out there too." We got married and had a child. For a while, life seemed serene and happy, but just a year after our wedding, Ryan killed me, accusing me of causing Lily's death. He took our child and inherited my family's wealth, only to drive my parents and child to the streets, where they froze to death. Now, as I looked at Ryan and Lily, I forced a smile. "Ryan, it's your birthday, so of course, you should decide what we do. I'll go wherever you want." Ryan beamed, pleased. I knew my baby was the best. Lily's expression soured. "Anna, I thought you didn't like adventures. Are you just pretending for Ryan's sake?" She clung to Ryan's sleeve. "If Anna doesn't want to go, we shouldn't force her. The rest of us can go with you." Suppressing my disgust at her fake concern, I kept smiling. "Oh no, I'm excited about it. Let's start packing." "Ryan." I dragged Ryan out of the room, leaving Lily fuming behind us. Once home, I began packing eagerly. Ryan, however, seemed worried. "Anna, you said that place is dangerous. Are you sure about this?" He handed me his phone, showing a promotional video of the rafting site. The footage showed a near vertical drop, almost 90 degrees, with the raft plunging into the rapids and disappearing for a moment before re-emerging. The comments above the video read, "Morning ride, afternoon retrieval, evening wake. Looks deadly, but it's not safe. Great way for companies to downsize. Survivors get to brag. Losers get left behind." Ryan hesitated. "Babe, didn't you say you wanted to do something challenging for your birthday this year? This seems perfect." I smiled serenely. "Exactly, Ryan. Let's make this birthday unforgettable. Besides, if this project is open to the public, they must ensure it's safe. There are so many staff members watching over it. Nothing will happen. Trust me," I said softly, trying to reassure Ryan. "If you're really scared, I can call Lily now and tell her we won't go." I picked up my phone, pretending to make the call. I'll go. Ryan snatched the phone out of my hand, clearly panicking. Late that night, I woke up to find the bed empty. I got up to look for him and found Ryan on the balcony, video chatting with someone. His face lit up with laughter. In my previous life, how had I never noticed that there was something between the two of them? "Keep laughing, Ryan. This time, I'll personally send you and your precious Lily straight to hell." On the way to the extreme rafting site, Lily began her antics again. First, she claimed to get carsick and insisted she couldn't sit in the back seat. She made me move so she could sit next to Ryan, leaning against him whenever the car jolted. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore her, but she refused to let me off so easily. "Anna," she said sweetly, "before we start rafting, we'll have to sign a waiver of liability. If you're scared, it's not too late to back out now." She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with smugness and provocation. "Sure, pull over then. I'll just grab a taxi home," I replied calmly, taking off my headphones and looking her directly in the eye. "No way," she exclaimed, caught off guard. "We're almost there, and it's dangerous for you to be alone. You can't leave now," Ryan interjected, looking uneasy. "Yeah, Anna, don't listen to her nonsense. It's not scary at all," Ryan's friends chimed in, trying to ease the tension. "I just feel like Lily doesn't like me very much," I said, pretending to be hurt. "I already agreed to come, but she keeps saying it's unsafe and not suitable for me." My voice trembled slightly, playing the part perfectly. Lily hadn't expected me to counter her so directly. Her mouth opened, but no words came out for a long moment. Then she stammered, "Anna, you've misunderstood me. I was just looking out for you." I pursed my lips, letting tears glisten in my eyes. "If you really don't like me, Lily, just say so. I'll leave. There's no need to repeatedly remind me that I'm not suited for this. I know you've always looked down on me, thinking I'm not good enough for Ryan. You didn't really want me here, did you? Fine. I'll just leave. If it's a game of playing innocent, two can play that." Ryan frowned, clearly embarrassed. He shot Lily a look. "Lily, apologize to her already." "Yeah, Lily," his friends echoed. "Look at how upset you've made Anna. Say you're sorry." Lily pouted, clearly unhappy but forced out a reluctant apology. "Sorry," she mumbled. I put my headphones back on and said no more. Up front, Lily and Ryan continued their playful banter, practically glued to each other. The mountain scenery was breathtaking, with towering trees and endless rolling hills. When we arrived at the rafting site, it was time to sign the liability waiver. Ryan hesitated, his pen hovering over the paper for a long moment. "Do we really have to sign this? What if something happens?" he asked nervously. "Don't worry, Ryan," Lily said, sidling close to him. Her chest nearly brushed against his arm. "I picked this especially for your birthday. It's guaranteed to be thrilling." "Exactly, Ryan," his friends added, slapping his shoulder. "It's your birthday. Let's do something exciting to celebrate." Ryan turned to me, conflicted. "Anna, do you really want to do this?" His eyes pleaded with me, clearly hoping I would say no. After years of being with him, I could read him like a book. He didn't want to go but needed me to make the decision for him. Looking at his pitiful expression, I wavered for a moment. Could it be that this time, his fear would change the outcome? But then I remembered the previous life. After we got into our dream graduate program, Ryan had tentatively suggested giving up our spots to apply to another school. a lesser-known university in Lily's hometown. Later, I learned that Lily had planned to attend that school. On the night of his birthday, Ryan had seemed distracted, repeatedly checking his phone under the excuse that his advisor was contacting him. I pushed those thoughts aside and looked at him steadily. If it's for your birthday, Ryan, I'm happy to go. Let's do it. I didn't notice his bloodshot eyes or the hatred lurking in their depths. After we got married, Ryan often used work as an excuse to stay away, leaving me shut out. Once, while tidying the study, I found his secret stash of photos of Lily. On the night Lily died, he had come home drunk, knocking on my door. And that was how we ended up with our first child. When I gave birth, weak and lying in the hospital bed, desperately needing his support, he hired a nanny and never visited me again. I thought he was just busy, but in reality, he was mourning Lily and couldn't bear to face me. The memory of him later forcing my head into the toilet, blaming me for stopping him from going on the rafting trip, snapped me back to reality. Ryan, everyone's gone to so much effort to celebrate your birthday. As your girlfriend, of course, I have to come along. Go ahead and sign the waiver. We still need to get our gear, I said, smiling sweetly at him. Under everyone's urging, he finally signed the waiver and joined us on the bus up the mountain. When it was time to change into our gear, more drama unfolded. I had done my homework and came fully prepared, wearing long sleeves and pants for protection. Beyond the standard issue helmet and life jacket provided by the park, I had spent a hefty sum on additional protective gear, including elbow and knee pads. Lily pointed at me and burst out laughing. Anna, you're being way too cautious. You look like a middle-aged woman in that outfit. Ryan's expression turned disapproving as he glanced at me. Lily, in contrast, wore a skimpy tank top and shorts, her fair skin on full display, attracting plenty of attention from other tourists. Smugly, she added, Ryan clearly likes my style. Anna, you should take notes and learn. Don't talk nonsense. Ryan interrupted hastily, clearly worried I'd pick up on something. He even reached out to cover Lily's mouth. To stand out, Lily had purchased a cute, cartoonish helmet online. In an effort to flaunt her figure, she refused to fasten her life jacket properly. I immediately noticed the helmet lacked a proper safety certification. If she hit something during the rafting trip, it would shatter on impact. Ryan must have noticed too. He glanced between Lily and me before saying, Anna, why don't you give Lily your knee pads and helmet? Although I had prepared myself mentally, his audacity still stunned me. Ryan, I said coldly, I spent almost $800 on this gear. Why should I give it to her? Because her face is bigger than mine. Ryan replied self-righteously. Anna, you can swim. Lily can't. Even if the raft flips, you'd be able to protect yourself. Lily's been my best friend since childhood. Can't you show her some kindness out of consideration for me? I rolled my eyes, looking back on my past life. I marveled at how foolish I had been to stick by this pair. They deserved nothing less than utter ruin. If you care so much about her, why didn't you buy her proper equipment yourself? The park provides helmets and life jackets, and she's the one refusing to wear them. There's a store right over there. If you're so worried, why don't you buy her something better? I pointed at the shop sign nearby. Lily looked touched, her eyes wide with gratitude as she gazed at Ryan. You're still looking out for me. Ryan, you're so sweet. Ryan's face turned red, then pale. Gritting his teeth, he led Lily to the store. I adjusted my knee and elbow pads, knowing full well that Ryan wouldn't spend hundreds or even thousands on protective gear that could only be used once. After all, I had always covered his expenses, from clothing to food to rent, because his family's financial situation wasn't great, and he was too proud to work part-time. Without my support, he wouldn't have survived on his measly $500 monthly stipend. Sure enough, after a long delay, Ryan and Lily returned. Lily's expression was less than pleased as she held up the gear Ryan had bought her. A flimsy disposable rain poncho that cost $5. Ryan's friends and I stifled our laughter as best we could. What's so funny? Lily said indignantly. Ryan only bought me this rain poncho because he didn't want me catching a cold if I got wet. I smirked internally. So, Ryan's supposed love for her was worth a grand total of $5? As we boarded the rafts, Lily clung to Ryan's arm, stopping him from sitting with me. Ryan, can you sit with me? I'm only brave enough if I'm with you. Ryan hesitated. After all, I was his girlfriend, least officially. Anna. Lily turned to me with an exaggerated pout. You've been with Ryan for years. Can't you let me have just 2 hours with him? Please. Anna, you can swim. Ryan added, thinking his justification sounded reasonable. It doesn't matter who you sit with, but if I sit with Lily, I can help her if the raft flips. I smiled, keeping my tone light. I don't mind at all. Really, I don't. After all, who knows if either of you will make it back alive? Lily beamed and eagerly dragged Ryan onto the raft she'd picked out. I stayed back, waiting to board with Ryan's friends. During the rafting trip, Lily posted a status on her private social media account. A little getaway with my favorite person. It read, accompanied by a picture of her and Ryan cheek to cheek, both grinning broadly. Meanwhile, Ryan also posted something visible to everyone but me. Bringing the girl I love to experience this adventure. Lily replied in the comments with a koi emoji, and their interaction was nauseatingly saccharine. Looking back at their raft, I saw them practically glued together, exchanging tender gazes. Lily hadn't entered the picture until after Ryan and I started dating. I thought she was just his childhood friend and never overanalyzed their relationship. Ryan had often lamented how hard his life had been, losing his parents young and working tirelessly to get into college. Feeling sorry for him, I shared everything I had. But the truth was, Ryan and Lily had always been lovers. They'd even had a wedding ceremony back in their hometown. Ryan had pursued me only to exploit my finances. Their plan was to milk me for money before getting married officially. That ill-fated rafting trip in my past life had ruined their scheme. When I was dying, Ryan had recounted all his sweet memories with Lily, only for me to realize, in my final moments, that I had been nothing more than a tool. With that bitter memory, I turned my head away, pretending not to notice their flirtation. The first section of the rafting course was relatively calm, with gentle drops and smooth bends. I had to admit, the scenery was stunning. The emerald green river was lined with dense forest, and the cool air was refreshing. Anna, didn't I say you were over-prepared? Lily called out smugly from the raft ahead of mine. The water isn't even fast here. She tossed me a mocking glance before removing her improperly secured life jacket during a calm section of the river. Lily and Ryan began splashing each other with water, their laughter echoing through the area. Soon, Lily's thin clothing was completely soaked, clinging tightly to her curves. Ryan's expression shifted noticeably. That moment, our rafts drifted into a dark cave. The space was pitch black, and Ryan took the opportunity to block my view as he pulled Lily into his arms and kissed her deeply. Though I couldn't see clearly, the sound of their lips and the exchange of saliva echoed embarrassingly in the silence. Even Ryan's friends turned their heads awkwardly. If we weren't here, they'd probably have turned this into some steamy river rendezvous. When the rafts emerged from the cave, Lily tried to act casual, smoothing her hair, but her swollen lips betrayed her. Anna, wasn't that fun? She said, looking at me with a provocative smile. I simply smiled back, saying nothing. The real show was yet to come. The calm stretches ended quickly as we approached an 80-meter drop. The river grew wild, with relentless rapids, countless sharp bends, and the enormous drop ahead. We had reached about 1/3 of the way through the rafting course. Lily, wanting to stay as close to Ryan as possible, completely ignored the safety instructions to sit at opposite ends of the raft for balance. A massive wave hit, flipping over several rafts, including ours. Help! Help! Lily's panicked cries echoed. The water here wasn't deep, barely reaching her chest, but she flailed helplessly, splashing around as if she were about to drown. I, along with everyone else, was tossed into the water. As I made my way back to the raft, I accidentally swallowed some water and began coughing violently. Ryan, however, didn't even glance my way. Without hesitation, he swam directly to Lily, helping her back to the raft and making sure she was secure. Ironically, Ryan only knew how to swim because I had paid for him to take lessons with the best instructor I could find, worried that he might one day face such a situation. And now, he was using the skills I funded to save another woman. That was so scary. Lily whimpered, trembling as she clung to Ryan like a boneless cat. If you hadn't been there, Ryan, I don't know what would have happened to me. Only then did Ryan seem to remember my existence. He glanced at me awkwardly, noticing I was still coughing. Anna, Lily's just never been in the water before. That's why she panicked. Don't take it the wrong way. We're totally innocent, he said, trying to justify himself. Why did you swallow water? Lily, seemingly realizing she needed to address the group, chimed in. Right. Anna, don't get jealous or anything. It was just a little accident, she added, laughing nervously. Of course not, I replied calmly, showing no emotion. You two have always been close, it's understandable. It was dangerous just now. Even I swallowed water. But it's a good thing Ryan reacted so quickly to save you. Lily, are you okay? Lily waved her hand dismissively, clearly uneasy. I'm fine, she muttered. Ryan's friends, who had been watching the scene unfold, gave me sympathetic looks. It was obvious they understood exactly what Ryan had just done. But I pretended not to notice and gripped the edge of the raft tightly. Brace yourselves. Another big wave is coming, called out. The next moment, our raft reached a nearly vertical drop. The raft plunged downwards, and Lily's shrill scream pierced the air. Judging by the duration of the fall, the drop was at least 200 meters. Torrential water poured over us, filling the raft within seconds. Before we could bail out the water, the powerful current pushed the raft towards a jagged cliffside. With a deafening crash, Lily and Ryan were both hurled out of their raft due to the force of the impact. My group was slightly luckier. Our raft collided with theirs, absorbing some of the impact. While we were flipped into the water, we weren't thrown out as violently. Lily and Ryan weren't so fortunate. The current flung them to the opposite side of the river. Lily's cheap helmet, as expected, shattered upon hitting the rocks. Sharp fragments cut her face, and blood quickly spread into the water. But she didn't even seem to notice the pain. Without a life jacket, she struggled desperately, choking on water as she fought to breathe. Ryan clung to a rock with one hand while grabbing Lily with the other. He screamed at the top of his lungs. Help! Somebody help us! Just like in my previous life, the rescue team was nowhere to be found. They must have taken a break. It wasn't a weekend, and there weren't many visitors today. While Ryan and Lily were closest to us, no one had the time or ability to help them. Everyone was focused on saving themselves. Ew, was thrown against a rock. Fortunately, the protective gear I'd purchased, my elbow and knee pads, prevented any injuries. After assessing the situation, I calmly instructed the others to take deep breaths, let their bodies float naturally, and hold their heads to protect themselves as they followed the current downstream to a calmer area. As we drifted with the current, I saw Ryan exerting every ounce of his strength to pull Lily towards him, in a selfless move, or perhaps a foolish one. He took off his own life jacket and helmet and handed them to her. I glanced at them briefly, my expression unreadable, before closing my eyes and bracing for the next drop. I didn't bother warning Ryan. In rapids this violent, even a strong swimmer wouldn't stand a chance without proper safety gear. We managed to climb back onto the raft at the next calm zone. This point, Ryan and Lily were also swept into the area, though not without consequence. Throughout the ordeal, Lily had clung to Ryan in fear, thrashing wildly in his arms, preventing him from navigating properly. In the chaos, Ryan's leg became lodged deeply in a crevice between rocks, directly beneath the steep drop. The raging water battered his body mercilessly. Lily, however, escaped relatively unharmed, thanks to the life jacket Ryan had given her. She floated effortlessly toward us, landing safely nearby. Anna, call for help. My leg is stuck, and I can't pull it out, Ryan screamed, his voice cracking in desperation. The rock pinning his leg appeared immovable, and the relentless waves continued crashing over him. He had already swallowed a considerable amount of water, coughing and sputtering between pleas for rescue. That moment, the rescue team finally arrived, their expressions grim as they surveyed the scene. One of them frowned and snapped. Why aren't you wearing your life jacket? And where's your helmet? The waiver you signed clearly stated that any injuries caused by not wearing safety gear are your responsibility. Lily, her face still streaked with tears, hurriedly interjected. "It's not his fault. The life jacket and helmet got damaged because of me." Ryan's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. After a brief silence, he growled, "Save me first. We'll deal with everything else later." The rescuer dove into the water and climbed onto the rock above Ryan, grabbing Ryan's arms. He tried pulling him free, but Ryan cried out in pain. "It's no use. My leg feels like it's going to break." The rescuer repositioned himself, attempting to pull Ryan from a different angle, but the crevice was unyielding. After more than 10 minutes of exhausting effort, sweat poured down the rescuer's face, yet Ryan's leg remained firmly trapped. "Help me. I don't want to die here," Ryan screamed, his voice filled with raw fear as the waves continued to batter him. His leg throbbed with pain, and panic set in. One of Ryan's friends couldn't hold back his anger. "Lily, this is all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on this ridiculous rafting trip, Ryan wouldn't be stuck here." Another friend, a boy in a yellow shirt, added, "Yeah, and if you hadn't been thrashing around so much, none of this would have happened." Faced with the mounting accusations, Lily began sobbing, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted Ryan to have some fun. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." Despite his pain, Ryan somehow mustered the strength to comfort her. "It's not your fault, Lily. I don't blame you." His voice was weaker now, barely audible. Lily wiped her tears and gazed at Ryan with gratitude. "Thank you for understanding me, Ryan," she murmured, sniffling. At this point, I calmly held up my phone. "I've already called the police, but this place is so remote that it'll take them hours to get here. Let's see if we can pull Ryan out in the meantime." Lily, avoiding everyone's accusatory stares, muttered, "I don't think I'll be much help. I'm not strong enough. I'll just wait on the shore." She climbed onto the bank and sat down, ignoring the glances of disapproval from the others. Ryan's expression turned sour, his frustration and pain intensifying. Over the next few hours, we tried everything to free him. First, we attempted to shift the rock as a group, putting all our strength into it. But the boulder, likely shaped by years of natural erosion, didn't budge an inch. Our collective strength wasn't nearly enough. Someone suggested using smaller rocks to chip away at the large one, hoping it might break apart. We quickly gathered stones and began hammering at the boulder. However, after just a few strikes, Ryan let out a blood-curdling scream. "Stop! The force is going straight into my leg. It's unbearable." We climbed back onto the bank, regrouping to discuss our next move. This time, we tried pulling Ryan out together, but the massive force of the current nearly threw us off balance, sending us crashing back into the water. Worse still, Ryan's leg began bleeding profusely, the sharp edges of the crevice cutting deeper with every movement. Desperation began to set in. My voice trembled as I called out to him, tears streaming down my face. "What do we do, Ryan? If only we hadn't come on this rafting trip. If only I had stopped Lily from bringing you here. I should have stopped him. The moment Ryan took off his life jacket, I should have made sure he kept it on." Now, with his leg wedged in the rocks, his circulation was severely restricted. Tissue damage was the least of his worries. Prolonged pressure could lead to necrosis. Desperation and anger were etched on his pale face. "Lily, this is all your fault," he yelled at her, his voice hoarse. "And now you're just standing there watching." Gone was the gentle tone he usually reserved for her. "Your leg is attached to your own body, Ryan. It's not like I held a knife to your neck and forced you to come." Lily snapped back, defiant. Ryan fell silent, not because he didn't have a retort, but because he was too exhausted to argue. The icy water had sapped his strength, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. His skin had turned deathly pale. Just as his consciousness began to fade, the rescue team arrived with professional equipment. They planned to use a drill to widen the crevice around Ryan's leg. But as soon as the drill made contact with the rock, Ryan screamed in agony. The vibrations drove fragments deeper into his leg, causing unbearable pain. "This won't work," Ryan cried out, his voice laced with desperation. "It hurts too much. It'll break my leg." The team switched to using a cutting tool to break the rock. However, the rock extended deep below the surface, and progress was painstakingly slow. Time was running out. The rescue leader, his expression grim, addressed Ryan. Son, we have two options. We can continue drilling to widen the crevice, which will hurt even more. Or we can amputate your lower leg. No. I just got accepted to a top-tier university. I can't lose my leg, Ryan shouted, clutching the rescuer's uniform as tears streamed down his face. Please, save me. You don't have much time left. Hypothermia and dehydration will kill you if you stay in the water any longer. The rescuer warned. Ryan's sobs quieted as the weight of the situation sank in. After a long silence, he whispered faintly, "Drill. Just do it." As the drill resumed, Ryan's screams echoed through the canyon. With each vibration, his pain intensified. Blood poured from his foot, staining the water around him a vivid red. His cries grew weaker and weaker until he finally lost consciousness, his body succumbing to hypothermia. After relentless efforts, the rescuers managed to free Ryan's mangled leg. It was no longer recognizable, a mess of flesh and shattered bone. We hurriedly placed his limp body on a stretcher and rushed him to an ambulance, leaving the treacherous mountains behind. Lily climbed into the ambulance as well. It was then I noticed the deep gashes on her face. The wounds appeared severely infected, and she had developed a fever. At the hospital, we were all thoroughly examined. Luckily, I and the others were declared healthy and discharged. Ryan, however, wasn't as fortunate. Prolonged lack of circulation and the contaminated water had caused severe tissue and nerve damage. The doctors determined that amputation was the only option to save his life. Outside the operating room, Ryan's parents were inconsolable. His mother fainted multiple times, while his father sobbed uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Lily's injuries left her face permanently scarred. Despite undergoing surgery to remove necrotic tissue, the damage was irreversible. Her wails of despair filled the hospital halls, a haunting echo of the price they paid for their choices. I took a taxi home that same night. In this life, my parents were both alive and well. As soon as I stepped through the door, still soaked from the rafting trip, tears welled up in my eyes, and I rushed to hug my mom tightly. "Mom, Dad, I've missed you so much." My mom held me gently, her voice warm and full of love. "Silly child. We just saw you a couple of days ago. Did the rafting mess with your head?" My dad chuckled, joining in. "Who upset our little princess? Tell me, and I'll sort them out." Burying my face in my mom's arms, I finally let out all the pent-up frustration and sorrow from both my past and present lives, crying freely. On the day of school registration, Ryan didn't show up. He was likely still recovering in the hospital. Eventually, his absence led to the school revoking his admission. Sometime later, Ryan's mom came to see me, pushing him in a wheelchair. She wanted me to take responsibility for him. I responded by showing her the video of Ryan and Lily's wedding banquet. "Auntie," I said coldly, "I know everything. If you insist that I take responsibility for him, I'll post this video online. Let everyone see what kind of son you've raised. A man who plays both sides." Ryan's face turned ashen. After a long silence, he and his mother left, their faces full of resentment. I went on to complete my graduate studies and take over my family's business. Meanwhile, Lily was forced by Ryan's parents to marry him. With his leg amputated, Ryan fell into despair, drowning himself in alcohol. When he got drunk, he would vent his frustration on Lily, blaming her for everything he had lost. In turn, Lily despised Ryan for being unable to provide for her, frequently berating him as useless. Their once loving relationship devolved into mutual hatred, turning them into enemies under the same roof. One day, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Ryan. His voice was frantic, almost deranged. "Anna, why didn't you stop me from going rafting this time? I remember in the last life, you stopped me, and we lived so happily together. Why didn't you stop me?" I felt my anger bubble up as I replied coldly, "Ryan, you only remember half the story. Yes, we were happy for a time, and I even gave birth to your child. But you blamed me for Lily's death. You killed me, suffocating me in a toilet, stole my family's wealth, and left my parents and child to starve to death. Why would I ever help you again? You regretted not going rafting in the last life. So I just let you fulfill your wish in this one. This is the path you chose. Enjoy the life you and Lily have together. I gritted my teeth as memories of my tragic end in the previous life came flooding back. No, Anna, I love you. Ryan cried desperately. After Lily and I got married, her true colors came out. She spends all her time dancing and gambling. She's burned through all of my parents' money and still insults me every day, calling me worthless. I know I made a mistake. Please, give me another chance. His sobs were pitiful, but I didn't flinch. Enjoy the life you chose, Ryan, I said firmly before hanging up. Knowing he was suffering brought me immense satisfaction. The next day, the police called me with shocking news. Ryan was dead. Apparently, Lily had accumulated a massive gambling debt, and loan sharks had come knocking. The stress killed Ryan's parents, and Lily's constant abuse and the threats from debt collectors pushed Ryan over the edge. In a fit of rage, he hid a knife and stabbed Lily when she got close. Then, using the same knife, he ended his own life. After completing my statement at the police station, I received a message from my mom. Hurry home. Anna, I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs. Stretching lazily as I stepped outside, I basked in the warm sunlight. My life was just beginning. After my rebirth, I changed my attitude toward Ethan. When he said he wanted to celebrate Natalie's birthday, I told him to buy more gifts. He took Natalie to the seaside, and I liked their photos on social media, wishing them a great time. While I was in the hospital for an abortion, he was accompanying Natalie to treat a cold. I praised him as a good boss, so dedicated to his employees. Due to a system upgrade, I received a lucky discount on my mission and no longer needed to marry him. In my previous life, I spent all my years by Ethan's side, but I never earned a marriage certificate. Even in my old age, my son stood by my sickbed, persuading Ethan, Aunt Natalie waited for you her whole life. Now you can finally marry her. Let me plan an unprecedented silver-haired wedding for you too. Today was Natalie's birthday. I had agreed to help him celebrate, so I might come back late. Over the phone, Ethan's voice was cold and indifferent. I held my phone tightly, still reeling from the system's words. Just moments ago, I was reborn. In my last life, I failed to complete the mission of capturing Ethan's heart, and I died bedridden. This time, the system greeted me with good news as soon as I opened my eyes. I no longer needed to pursue Ethan. I could leave early. What's wrong? Are you mad again? Ethan sounded impatient. I told you already. There's nothing between me and Natalie. I only see her as a little sister. Stop being so narrow-minded. Okay. When I didn't respond for a while, Ethan grew a bit irritated. And you're pregnant now. Pregnant women shouldn't let their minds wander. Don't harm the baby over nonsense. His reminder jolted my memory. At this point in time, I had just found out I was pregnant. Fortunately, it wasn't too late to act. I replied calmly. Buy some extra gifts. Natalie loves luxury brands. When I first came into this world, Ethan was a fresh graduate, and we built his business together from scratch. We worked tirelessly, day and night, until the company finally gained traction and began to thrive. Now, I was pregnant and resting at home, while he had hired a secretary. Natalie. Natalie was Ethan's childhood sweetheart. They had dated for 2 years in college but broke up when she went abroad for further studies. Now, she was back and effortlessly took the place of all my years of hard work. Don't think of Natalie as materialistic. Ethan defended her. She's not like that. She doesn't have family in this city, and we're just offering her some warmth as friends. Ethan couldn't tolerate a single negative word about Natalie. He thought I was being passive-aggressive. I won't say more. Anyway, I'll try to come back early, he said curtly, running out of patience, and hung up. Please handle all your affairs within the next 2 weeks. Once the time is up, I will take you away. The system reminded me. I touched my stomach. There were indeed things that needed to be dealt with. You want an abortion? The doctor looked at my pregnancy test results with some regret. Even though it's only been a month, all the indicators are very healthy. And you're nearly 30. Why would you want to terminate the pregnancy? In my previous life, after giving birth, I stayed home to take care of the child while Ethan's company grew rapidly. He opened multiple branches in other cities and traveled often. sometimes for months. Naturally, as his secretary, Natalie was always by his side. As my son grew up, he gradually shifted his affection from me to Natalie, where he once only had eyes for his mother. He eventually started mentioning Aunt Natalie frequently. By the time he was in high school, at one parent-teacher conference, Ethan used the excuse that I was busy to have Natalie attend the parent-teacher conference on my behalf. I only found out about it from other parents. Is that your sister who came to the last parent-teacher conference for your child? Ethan's mom? She's so young and beautiful. I touched my increasingly rough hands and face, neglected from years of care, and remained silent for a long time. My grown son, much like his father, became increasingly absent as he entered middle age. I had once complained to Ethan in front of him about how Ethan never wanted to marry me. My son had responded, "You're already at this age. You've kept dad to yourself for a lifetime. Why do you still care about something as trivial as a marriage certificate?" But in the end, standing by my sickbed, he said to Ethan, "Aunt Natalie waited for you her whole life. Now, you can finally be together openly. Let me plan a groundbreaking silver-haired wedding for you too." At the very last moment of my life, I was left with nothing but deep regret. If I had known it would turn out this way, why did I ever give birth to him? My relationship with Ethan was strained from the beginning. We couldn't marry, and raising a child out of wedlock had been too hard. I decided to go through with the abortion. The doctor sighed but didn't try to persuade me further. The procedure was scheduled for 2 days later. I looked forward to regaining my freedom soon. In the middle of the night, I received a call from Ethan. I answered twice with hello, but there was no response. Instead, I heard the chatter and laughter of his friends in the background. It seemed he had accidentally dialed me. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard a man's voice asking, "Ethan, are you really not planning to marry Lily?" I recognized that voice. It was one of Ethan's close friends. They were probably celebrating Natalie's birthday together. Suddenly, the laughter quieted down. Everyone was waiting for Ethan's response. In the silence, Ethan finally answered, "The person I want to marry isn't Lily, but since we started this company together, and she holds shares, it only makes sense for me to stay with her for now. But getting married, I can't do it." There was a collective sigh on the other end. Someone said, "Natalie, why are you crying?" Then came Ethan's panicked voice, "Natalie, I didn't mean." I didn't listen further. I hung up the phone silently. Ethan didn't return until the next day. When he opened the door, I was leisurely having breakfast. His expression was slightly unnatural, but he still explained, "After we celebrated Natalie's birthday last night, everyone insisted on going out to sing karaoke. I lost track of time, and by the time I realized, it was already late. I thought coming back then would wake you, so I stayed at the office instead." I could still smell faint traces of perfume on him, Natalie's favorite scent. I nodded. "Got it." My indifference made Ethan relax, but he quickly grew dissatisfied. "You've changed," he remarked. "In the past, if I came home late, you'd bombard me with calls and texts. Last night, you didn't even call once." I swallowed the last bite of my toast. "Didn't you tell me to be more generous and give you space? Besides, we don't have a marriage certificate. We're not officially husband and wife." I thought to myself, I have no standing to demand anything from Ethan about marriage. Subconsciously, I resisted the idea of rushing into it anyway. "Let's wait until after you've had the baby to discuss it. Whether or not we have that marriage certificate doesn't really matter between us." I replied. "You're right." Ethan looked at me, puzzled, trying to discern my true emotions from my expression. But I remained calm and neutral, leaving him with nothing to read. After all these years, he had never truly understood my feelings. When you don't genuinely care about someone, there's no need to invest the effort to understand them. 2 days passed quickly. I packed the essentials and headed to the hospital. Although the doctor had advised bringing family or friends, I had neither in this world. My entire life here revolved around Ethan. I had no relatives, no close friends, and no one to accompany me. So, I went alone. While paying the fees, I encountered someone I had expected but also dreaded to see, Ethan and Natalie. Natalie was covering her mouth, coughing lightly now and then. Ethan looked at her with concern. gently guiding her to a seat to rest while he queued up to pay the fees. He looked like a devoted husband, a side of him I had never seen before. Every time I needed to go to the hospital, Ethan would tell me, "Lily, I'm busy. I trust you can take care of yourself." I had always understood and refrained from burdening him, but the outcome of being so considerate was that no one ever treated me as someone worth prioritizing. I silently lined up behind him. Even while waiting, Ethan kept turning to check on Natalie. "Natalie, wrap your scarf properly. Don't catch a chill." His words were cut short when he noticed me standing there. "Lily, what are you doing here?" he asked, visibly startled. I raised the medical form in my hand. "I'm here for a prenatal checkup. What about you?" We greeted each other like mere acquaintances. Ethan hesitated for a moment before replying. "Natalie has a cold. I came with her to see the doctor." "I see," I said with indifference. "Well, you're her boss. It's only right to take care of your employees." Ethan glanced at the form in my hand and nodded. "It's good that you think so. After I finish here with Natalie, I'll stay and accompany you for your checkup." Before I could respond, Natalie approached us. Her eyes were red, either from her cold or something else. "Ethan, you don't need to stay with me. I'll be fine on my own. Lily is more important than me. You should stay with her," she said, her nasal voice heavy, making her sound pitiful. Ethan's expression softened with guilt. "No way. You're sick. How can you be alone? What if you need N4 and there's no one to help you? How could I face our years of friendship if I left you like that?" Then he turned to me with an apologetic look. "Lily, you can manage on your own, right?" How could I proceed with the abortion if he stayed? Without hesitation, I replied, "Of course." I watched them walk off together. Their retreating figures caught the attention of an elderly woman nearby, who turned to me with curiosity. "Mississippi, what's your relationship with that young man? I'm old, and I can't quite make sense of it." "That's the father of my child," I answered, "though he won't be for much longer." The procedure was quick. After a brief sleep, the child in my womb was gone. In my previous life, I had spent the first half revolving around Ethan and the second half around our child. In the end, both my husband and my child belonged to someone else. Touching my now flat stomach, I felt a sense of relief, as though I had been reborn. "Take care of yourself after the surgery," the doctor instructed, repeating it multiple times. "You need to rest and recuperate properly." I nodded, promising to follow the advice. Supporting my weakened body, I returned home. As I opened the door, I was greeted by the sight of Natalie sitting on the sofa. Ethan stood nearby, holding a cup, urging her to drink. "Drink more warm water," he said gently. "Get better soon," Ethan said softly. Natalie burst out laughing. "You're such a typical guy. All you know is to tell people to drink warm water." Their interaction was gentle and affectionate, the kind of harmony that felt like a slap to my face. When they heard the door open, they both turned to look at me. Ethan remained seated. "You're back. How was your checkup?" Without waiting for me to answer, he continued, "Natalie isn't feeling well, and I was worried she'd be alone at home with no one to take care of her. I figured she could stay here for the night. That way, it's easier for me to keep an eye on her." My abdomen ached slightly, the lingering pain from the surgery making me feel even more drained. "Fine," I replied. "You two carry on. I'm a bit tired and need to rest." Ethan's voice stopped me in my tracks, laced with dissatisfaction. "Dinner isn't ready yet. And you're already heading to bed? I bought plenty of ingredients. They're in the kitchen. You're great at cooking. And now's the perfect chance for Natalie to try your food. It might even help her recover faster." Even after 2 lifetimes, I still knew exactly how Ethan viewed me. Yet, in this moment of physical weakness, his words cut deeper than ever. "Ethan," I said, my tone cold and restrained, "which is more important, Natalie's cold or my pregnancy?" Ethan paused, taken aback. "Those two things aren't related. Why are you comparing them?" I closed my eyes, suppressing the bitterness that threatened to overflow. I said, "I'm tired. Didn't you hear me? I'm carrying your child. Are you really asking a pregnant woman who's unwell to cook dinner for your childhood sweetheart?" Ethan's face darkened. "If you don't want to cook, fine, but don't bring Natalie into this." She's a guest. Not here to deal with your attitude. I laughed bitterly. A guest? Did I invite her here? Natalie's face turned pale as she stood up and apologized. I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't realize you didn't want me here. I'll leave now. Before she could move, Ethan grabbed her arm and shielded her behind him. His tone was icy. Lily, this is my home, he said, enunciating each word. If anyone has to leave, it won't be Natalie. I almost forgot. This house was bought with the first bit of money we earned together. At the time, I told him, there's no need to differentiate between us. Just put it under your name. Back then, before Natalie returned, my trust in Ethan was absolute. Now, he was standing here, ready to kick me out instead. I turned and left without looking back. Ethan didn't stop me. It was always me who swallowed my pride first whenever we argued. But his patience and kindness were reserved solely for Natalie. The weather had turned chilly. Still recovering from surgery, I didn't dare wander aimlessly in the streets. I checked into a hotel instead. In the brightly lit bathroom, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face was gaunt, my appearance utterly disheveled. There was a time when I was full of energy, firmly believing that Ethan and I shared the same dreams. We worked late into the night, striving for a brighter future. The longest stretch was when we huddled together in a cramped office, watching the sky turn from night to dawn. Our goal will come true, I had said, leaning against Ethan for support. Ethan's eyes had reddened, and he hugged me tightly. You don't have to work this hard, he'd whispered. Don't be silly. I had replied with a smile. As long as you succeed, I don't mind the hardship. And he had succeeded. He had forgotten all the hardships we endured together, supporting each other through thick and thin. My abdomen still ached, making it hard for me to fall asleep. I tossed and turned until late into the night and finally drifted off. When I woke the next day, it was already afternoon. My phone was eerily silent. No calls, no messages. The pinned chat with Ethan showed no updates. The last message was from 2 weeks ago. I absent-mindedly scrolled through my social feed and saw Natalie's latest post. Feeling down, Ethan took me to see the ocean. He said the sea breeze can blow all the sadness away. He's still the same as when we were kids. After all this time, he's come back unchanged, still as vibrant as ever. There were 9 photos, all of Natalie and Ethan by the blue ocean, striking various playful poses and grinning brightly. I remembered when Ethan and I went on a trip together, and I tried to pull him into taking photos with me. He had frowned and refused, saying, I don't like posing for the camera. You go ahead and take your own pictures. I laughed bitterly at the memory and gave Natalie's post a like. Not long after, Ethan messaged me. You should be feeling better now, right? If you're fine, come home. It's not safe to stay out with the baby. Natalie was feeling down, so I took her to see the ocean. We won't be gone long. Take care of yourself. In Ethan's eyes, I was someone who never needed comfort. In the past, I might have cried or argued, but now I felt nothing. Even the only tie between us, our child, was gone as of yesterday. There was nothing left between us. I replied, hope you both have a great time. The typing indicator on his end blinked for a while, but in the end, he didn't respond. I went back to the apartment, packed my belongings, and sorted through everything. I threw out what I didn't need and gave away what could be donated. There was even a new set of cookware I had bought to make soups for Ethan's stomach issues. It was no longer necessary, so I gifted it to my neighbor, Grace, who was a few years older than me. She pulled me aside and asked, You and Ethan didn't have a fight, did you? I shook my head. Oh, let me tell you, she said, pointing at my apartment door. Last night, a young woman stayed over at your place. It was already midnight, and I could hear her and Ethan laughing and chatting. Then, this morning, I saw them leave together, pulling suitcases. She sighed and continued, You know, men are easily tempted. You're pregnant now, so you have to watch him closely. Don't give other women a chance to worm their way in. But honestly, if his heart's not with you, no amount of watching will help. I spent the next 2 days scrubbing every trace of my life from that apartment. When I looked at the half-empty rooms, I felt no attachment. Crossed 2 lifetimes. The happy moments I'd had in that house were pitifully few. With less than 10 days left before my departure, I planned to stay at a hotel, but as I stepped out, I saw Ethan's car parked outside. He had returned. It was already evening, and the light was dim. I couldn't hear what Natalie was saying in the passenger seat, but she was smiling. Ethan reached out, took her hand, and kissed it. In my past life, I had witnessed a similar scene when Ethan and Natalie brought our 10-year-old son to an amusement park. I had stayed home to care for Ethan's sick mother. That night, there was a fireworks show at the park, and as the sky lit up brilliantly, Ethan and Natalie had shared a passionate kiss. Our son, Sean, had covered his eyes and laughed, and someone nearby had taken a photo of them. The picture was posted online, showing a handsome man, a beautiful woman, and an adorable child. The caption read, "This must be the perfect picture of happiness." Someone recognized Ethan and commented, accusing him of cheating. But Ethan, using my name, had replied, "We were never married, so how is this cheating?" This incident didn't cause much of a stir. Without the legal bond of marriage, it was merely a faint whisper of moral condemnation, quickly silenced by Ethan. I confronted him with the photos, demanding an explanation. Ethan responded coldly, "If you still want to stay by my side and raise Sean, stop making a big deal out of this. No one is allowed to hurt Natalie." Sean echoed his sentiment. "Yeah, Mom, stop questioning Dad. Aunt Natalie has been so upset she cried several times. When she's unhappy, I'm unhappy. And if I'm unhappy, you'll be sad too, right?" I stood silently for a moment, then walked away. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Natalie, a picture of Ethan kissing her. Seconds later, she retracted it and sent a panicked follow-up. "Sorry, Lily. I sent it to the wrong person. You didn't see anything, did you?" I blocked her immediately. Within minutes, Ethan called, his tone furious. "Lily, why did you block Natalie? Why do you always hurt her for no reason?" I was too tired to explain myself. Whenever Natalie was involved, Ethan became blind to reason, willing to go against the entire world for her. His intelligence seemed to plummet when it came to her. "You're so petty," he accused. "I don't think I'll come home anytime soon. Take this time to calm down and reflect on your behavior." He angrily hung up the phone, likely turning to comfort Natalie, who was once again pretending to be hurt. That so-called home was already empty. Whether Ethan returned or not made no difference to me. In the final days before my departure, I decided to visit the only person I still cared about, Ethan's mother, Lon. Even though Ethan and I had never married, I had called her Mom my entire life. She was kind and had always treated me like her own daughter, constantly advising Ethan to be good to me. In my past life, after she became ill and her caregiver neglected her, I did everything I could to take care of her, surpassing even Ethan's efforts as her biological son. Currently, she lived in her house in the suburbs. I had invited her to stay with us several times, but she always laughed and refused, saying she didn't want to disrupt our married life. She said she would come and help after the baby was born. As I approached her house, I noticed a familiar car parked in the driveway. I hadn't expected to run into Ethan here. Just as I was about to leave, I heard voices coming from inside. "Natalie, I've missed you these past few days. I think about you all the time," Lon said in a loving tone. "It's Ethan's fault," Natalie replied playfully. "He took me to the ocean a few days ago and didn't want me to tire myself out. Otherwise, I'd have come to see you sooner." My feet felt rooted to the ground. The conversation continued. "It's a good thing Ethan cares about you," Lon said warmly. "I never thought that boy had it in him to care about anyone. Look at how he treats Lily. He doesn't even care about her as much as a strand of your hair." Lon laughed, her words unfamiliar and cutting. "Natalie, remember this. The daughter-in-law of the Ethan family is only you. Both Ethan and I recognize you. I've thought of you as my daughter-in-law since you were a child. If it weren't for your unique condition, your inability to have children, Ethan wouldn't have had to keep Lily around. Don't worry, Natalie. Once Lily has the baby, you and Ethan can get married. That child will be yours and Ethan's." It felt like a bolt of lightning striking me out of nowhere. My mind went blank, leaving me in a daze. So that's how it was. In my past life, My son Sean initially only had eyes for me as his mother, but every time he stayed at Lan's house for a while, he'd come back closer to Natalie and colder toward me. Now I understood. It was my kind mother-in-law who had been orchestrating this. A bitter taste filled my mouth. My mediocre life had not only been a joke to Ethan but was also a pawn in Lan's schemes. I had cared for her through her illness and cried until my vision went dark when she passed away. The autumn wind brushed against my hair and clothes, and my heart felt like it had been submerged in ice water. I wandered aimlessly until I found myself in a park. A little girl's ball rolled to my feet. I bent down to pick it up and handed it to her. She had adorable round eyes, sparkling like gems, and said in a sweet, childlike voice, "Thank you, sister. You look sad." With her chubby little hands, she rummaged through her small pocket and pulled out a lollipop, placing it in my hand. "Mom says to throw away all the things that make you unhappy and keep the ones that make you happy," she said earnestly. "I threw away my math problems last time and kept the lollipop. Now I'll give it to you." I held the lollipop tightly. She was right. Even a child understood such a simple truth. Why was I so stuck? The truth had finally come to light before my departure. That alone was worth celebrating. If something made me unhappy, I should discard it. If someone made me unhappy, I should discard them too. I resolved to leave this world with a light heart. My mood instantly lifted, and it felt as though all my burdens had been lifted. Even the wind seemed gentler. Ethan didn't come home for an entire week, likely thinking that giving me space would teach me to behave, just as it always had in the past. Every time we fought, this was his solution, and every time, I would give in, becoming the compliant and obedient Lily he wanted. Too weak to demand a breakup. But this time, things were different. The silence stretched on, and I didn't reach out to him. Not a single call or message. Ethan felt a flicker of unease but brushed it off. When he finally returned home, he opened the door to darkness. It was only 8 p.m. Had I gone to bed early? Was it because of the pregnancy? Concern flickered in his mind as he turned on the lights. The sight of the half-empty house stunned him. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he rushed to the bedroom, pushing the door open with a bang. I wasn't there. He checked every room, but there was no trace of the person who always left a light on for him. Ethan's face darkened. Lily's gone too far this time. Running away from home? Even if she came back begging for reconciliation. He resolved not to forgive her so easily this time. He sat on the couch in the living room, his gaze falling on a piece of paper pinned under a glass on the coffee table. From his angle, he could just make out the words, "hospital receipt." Ethan picked up the glass and saw the itemized list on the receipt. One line read, "surgical fees." His confusion turned to horror as he processed the information. His face paled. "Lily." He murmured her name through gritted teeth. He frantically called my number. But like Natalie, he discovered that I had blocked him. For the first time, fear gripped Ethan's heart like never before. He had never imagined that someone as obedient and eager for a child as me could so easily decide to have an abortion. That was his child. How could I make that decision without him? Ethan rushed out of the house, running into Grace, our neighbor, who had just returned from her evening walk. "Ethan, you're finally back. Do you know where Lily is? I haven't seen her in over a week," she called out. Ethan didn't answer. Like a headless chicken, he began searching for me everywhere. I only had a handful of acquaintances. I hadn't gone to the office, nor had I been to Lan's house. He spent the entire night searching but found no trace of me. When he was on the verge of despair, a friend informed him that they had found my name on the guest list of a hotel. Ethan rushed over without delay, only to be told that I had already checked out. Today was the day I would leave this world, and I felt exhilarated. I left the hotel early in the morning and chose the park as the place where I'd say goodbye. The system asked if I wanted to bring anything along, could help me carry it. I squeezed the lollipop in my hand, the one the adorable little girl had given me. "This will do," I said. The system informed me that upon returning to my original world, I would receive a reward of $1 billion in cash. The wealth I had created in this world was valued at $50 million. And with the system's upgrade, the reward had been doubled. It was an unexpected windfall that lifted my spirits even higher. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed incessantly, displaying countless missed calls from Ethan. After some thought, I unblocked him and called him back. Lily, what the hell are you doing? Where are you? I've been looking for you for an entire day and night. Ethan's voice came through, furious and panicked. Rarely did he show such unrestrained emotion. Why did you get rid of the baby? How could you make such a selfish decision without even telling me? I'm the father. Ethan, I said calmly. Do you know when I had the abortion? Ethan didn't answer. It was the day you accompanied Natalie to the hospital for her cold. You're right. I've always been capable of taking care of myself. So I went alone. You went through with it just because I was with Natalie? He asked, still seemingly confused. Ethan, I said evenly. I've told you before. I only ever saw her as my sister. No one kisses their sister. I replied, my tone steady. That's incest. Ethan went silent, his breath catching as he realized what I had witnessed. You saw us, he murmured. Not just that, I said. I also heard what you and your mother discussed. That since Natalie can't have children, you'd give my baby to her. Ethan, your entire family is impressively conniving. Lily, Ethan interrupted, his voice trembling. It's not what you think. My mother may have said that, but I never intended to go through with it. It doesn't matter anymore, I said, glancing at the portal opening behind me. The only reason I took your call was to tell you one thing. I'm leaving. Where are you going? Ethan's voice rose in panic. You have no one but me. Where else could you go? No, I won't let you leave. 5 years ago, I came here with a mission to marry you. Ethan, I once loved you, unrelated to any mission. But you treated my love as something cheap. Something to squander endlessly. I don't love you anymore. I'm going back to my world. Goodbye. Ethan. No, I heard his voice both through the phone and in real life. Looking up, I saw him sprinting toward me from the other side of the park. His hair disheveled. He had used my phone's GPS to find me. His eyes widened as he saw the shimmering portal behind me. Disbelief written all over his face. Lily, don't go. Let's get married. I'll get the marriage certificate right now, he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. I stepped back toward the portal. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I saw genuine reluctance and panic in Ethan's eyes. For me. But it was too late. That kind of cheap sentiment? I didn't want it. We'll get married, Ethan pleaded. We'll have a grand wedding. So what if the baby's gone? We can always have another. He reached out his hand toward me, desperation in his eyes. Lily, I was wrong. Please give me a chance to make things right. I didn't reply. Without hesitation, I turned and stepped into the portal, leaving behind Ethan's frantic footsteps and heart-wrenching cries in a world that no longer belonged to me. A month had passed since I left. No one believed Ethan when he said, Lily went back to her own world. Don't be ridiculous, they'd say. She just broke up with you. Ethan couldn't even find solace in their attempts to comfort him. For the first time, he realized how empty and cold his home was. No more bustling figure in the kitchen. No more warm meals on the table. No one unconditionally forgiving his every mistake. He stared at the hospital receipt over and over, haunted by the memory of that day. He had been running up and down the hospital for Natalie's cold while I lay alone in the operating room, surrounded only by cold, sterile instruments. What once came to him so effortlessly, the warmth, the love, was now just a flood of precious memories, suddenly invaluable. Natalie moved into the home I had once shared with Ethan, filling the empty space with her presence. Yet something felt off. Was it the bedsheets in colors I would never have chosen? The meals that didn't suit his taste? Or the soap operas on TV that I would have never watched? He couldn't quite place it. Natalie chirped endlessly about her day, complaining about work and coworkers. But Ethan's mind wandered. He found himself thinking about me, how I had never complained, how I always encouraged him, helped him analyze problems, and stood by him during the hardest times. I had built a business with him from nothing and, even after his success, still brought him late-night bowls of soup to soothe his stomach. Every time he saw Grace, our neighbor, she sighed deeply. Ethan, you've lost a rare gem like Lily. Won't you regret it? Ethan began dreaming about me frequently. His mother, Lon, tried to console him. Lily is gone. And that's that. What a pity about my grandson. Natalie can't have kids. Where will you ever find another woman as genuine as Lily? Meanwhile, the once thriving business Ethan had built began to falter. Orders plummeted, and no matter what efforts he made, the company's decline seemed unstoppable. Under immense stress, Ethan started losing focus. One day, while driving, his exhaustion caught up with him, and he had a severe car accident. He spent 3 months in the hospital recovering. Lon, distressed over her son's condition, fell ill herself. First, Natalie split her time between caring for Ethan and Lon, but her patience quickly wore thin. She eventually hired a caretaker and stopped visiting altogether. One day, Lon tearfully confided in Ethan, "You see someone's true colors over time. Natalie isn't someone you can count on in hard times. She's nothing compared to Lily. If Lily were still here, she'd be taking care of both of us so well. Where in the world can you find another Lily?" The last time Natalie visited, it wasn't to comfort Ethan but to inform him that most of the company's employees had quit. "The company's collapsing," she said bluntly. "Zenith Corporation offered me a job, and I accepted. Ethan, we're not a good match. Let's break up." But Natalie never actually started her new job. She had betrayed Ethan, leaking confidential company information, which tarnished her reputation in the industry. She became blacklisted, struggling to find work. Meanwhile, the caretaker Lon relied on neglected her duties. One night, while the caretaker napped in another room, Lon tried to get out of bed to use the bathroom. She called for help but got no response. Struggling on her own, she fell, hitting her head on the floor and dying instantly. Ethan, limping from his injuries, arranged Lan's funeral by himself. On the day of her burial, his company officially declared bankruptcy. Ethan stared at his reflection in the mirror. His unkempt beard and haggard face stared back, a stark contrast to the confident man he once was. In just a short time, he had fallen from the heights of success to the depths of despair. The version of himself who had thrived alongside Lily now felt like a distant memory from another lifetime. Ethan understood clearly. He could no longer rise from this fall. Without Lily, he was nothing. Meanwhile, in another world, Lily heard the cheerful voice of the system. "Congratulations, host. The remaining $50 million reward has been credited to your account. Please check your balance." She sat in a spacious office, smiling as she gazed out the floor-to-ceiling window at the breathtaking cityscape. The sunlight spilled across the buildings, scattering like golden shards over the bustling streets below. "Ms. Lily, the meeting is about to begin. Everyone is waiting for your speech." Lily stood up, her steps light and confident. The sunlight illuminated her figure, making her seem as though she were glowing. And that concludes today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. See you in the next video.